It's a collaboration. I think that's putting it too far. No, you wrote the novel based on this, right? Indeed. Yeah. Berserker. For years, Keanu Reeves kept his darkest struggles hidden. Now, as his body breaks down from decades of stunts, he's facing an impossible choice about John Wick 5. But behind the scenes, a more painful story emerges: the death of his best friend River Phoenix, the loss of his baby daughter, and the tragic accident that took away the love of his life. Today, we reveal why Hollywood's kindest star has been silently suffering all along. Keanu Reeves was born on September 2, 1964, in Beirut, Lebanon. His mother, Patricia Taylor, was an English costume designer. His father, Samuel Reeves, was a Hawaiian Chinese geologist. They met in Beirut while his father was working and his mother was performing. The name Keanu comes from Hawaiian and means cool breeze over the mountains. From the start, Keanu's life was full of movement. His family never stayed in one place for long. When he was 2, his parents divorced. His father left, and his mother had to raise him and his younger sister, Kim, on her own. It wasn't easy. His father had his own struggles. He got involved in drugs and was arrested for selling heroin at an airport in Hawaii. Keanu saw him for the last time when he was 13. That was their final meeting. After that, his father disappeared from his life. His mother worked hard to support the family. Her job in the entertainment industry brought creativity into Keanu's world, but it also meant constant change. She remarried multiple times. Every new marriage meant a new home in a new city. They moved to Sydney, then to New York, and finally to Toronto. Keanu had to adjust to new schools, new people, and a different way of life every time they packed up and left. Toronto became the closest thing to a home, but even there, life didn't settle down. His mother's second husband was a stage and film director, but their marriage lasted only a year. She married again, this time to a rock promoter. That didn't last either. Later, she married a hairdresser. Keanu went through it all, watching his mother try to build a stable life, but nothing stayed the same for long. School was another challenge. He attended 4 different high schools in 5 years. Dyslexia made it hard for him to keep up with reading. He struggled with the structure of traditional schooling and was eventually expelled. But he had other interests that mattered more. Hockey became his escape. Keanu Reeves grew up in Toronto, where hockey was more than just a sport, it was part of life. From an early age, he showed real talent on the ice. He was so good that he considered trying out for the Windsor Spitfires in the Ontario Hockey League, a big step toward a professional career. But things didn't go as planned. A serious injury ended his dreams and forced him to find a new path. Losing hockey was painful, but it led him to something unexpected: acting. His childhood had already prepared him for change. After his parents divorced, his family moved around a lot. His mother worked as a costume designer, taking jobs in different places. So Keanu had to adjust to new schools and new surroundings all the time. That constant shift may have helped him build the resilience he would later need in Hollywood. By the time he was 17, he made a bold choice. He dropped out of high school to focus on acting. Leaving hockey behind wasn't easy, but it turned out to be the best decision of his life. Even though his hockey career ended, he carried the lessons with him: the discipline, the teamwork, the ability to push through challenges. He took all of it into acting. He never lost his love for the game either. To this day, he still plays for fun whenever he gets the chance. His first real step into acting came in 1984 with a small role in the Canadian TV series Hanging In. It was a comedy that aired on CBC, and while it wasn't a breakthrough, it was a start. Around the same time, he landed a Coca-Cola commercial, one of his first big on-camera experiences. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave him confidence. That same year, he worked as a correspondent for Going Great, a CBC youth series. The job required him to interview people, present stories, and connect with young audiences. It was a different kind of performance, but it helped him develop his skills. Stage acting also played a big role in shaping him. In 1985, he performed as Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet at the Leah Poslan's Theatre in North York. Classical theater was a challenge, but it gave him a deeper understanding of acting. Between TV roles, commercials, and stage performances, he was building a strong foundation for his career. During this time, he even thought about changing his name. He worried that Keanu Reeves sounded too unusual and might make it harder to land roles. But in the end, he decided to stick with it. That choice reflected something important: he wasn't going to change who he was just to fit in. His career took a serious turn in 1986 when he landed a role in River's Edge, a dark crime drama that premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. The story followed a group of teenagers dealing with the aftermath of a murder. Reeves played Matt, a conflicted friend of the killer. He wasn't the lead, but his performance stood out. It showed depth and subtlety, proving that he could handle serious material. 2 years later, he took on his first major lead role in Permanent Record. The film tackled heavy themes like teenage suicide and grief. Reeves played Chris Townsend, a teen struggling with the sudden loss of his best friend. It was an emotional role, and he handled it with honesty and vulnerability. His performance made an impact. Critics saw that he wasn't just another young actor playing troubled teens, he had real talent. These 2 films helped him break into Hollywood, but the role that changed everything came in 1989. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure turned him into a household name. The sci-fi comedy followed 2 high schoolers, Bill S. Preston, ESQ, played by Alex Winter, and Ted Theodore Logan, played by Reeves, as they traveled through time meeting historical figures to pass their history class. Reeves was one of the first actors to audition for Ted, and his chemistry with Winter was immediate. They bonded over their shared love of bass guitars and motorcycles, and their connection made the characters feel real. Nobody expected the movie to be a huge success, but audiences loved it. Made on a $10 million budget, it pulled in $40 million at the box office and became a cult classic. Reeves' portrayal of Ted, with his laid-back attitude and catchphrases like "whoa" and "excellent," became iconic. Almost overnight, he became a star. The success of Bill and Ted led to a sequel, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, in 1991. The franchise even spawned an animated series, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, which aired from 1990 to 1991. But with success came a challenge: many people started seeing him only as Ted, a goofy, clueless teen. Some critics questioned whether he could take on more serious roles. That stereotype followed him for years. But Reeves wasn't the type to let other people define him, he was just getting started. Bigger roles were on the horizon. Felt like his time as a leading man was fading, but then came a film that changed everything. John Wick wasn't just another action movie, it was a story about loss, revenge, and a man with nothing left to lose. Reeves played a retired hitman who went on a killing spree after criminals stole his car and killed his dog, a final gift from his late wife. The story was simple, but it had something different. The action was intense, and the world it created was unlike anything seen before. Getting the movie made wasn't easy. The directors, Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, had never directed a film before. Studios weren't convinced Reeves could still carry an action movie, but Lionsgate took a chance and bought the rights just 2 months before release. The marketing played a huge role in turning the film into an event. The trailers made it clear this wasn't just another generic action movie, it had style, precision, and Keanu Reeves in a role that fit him perfectly. The film premiered in New York on October 13, 2014. Reeves walked the red carpet with Andy, the puppy that played his dog in the film. A week later, John Wick opened in theaters across the U.S. No one expected much. Analysts predicted it would make around $7 to $10 million in its first weekend. Instead, it pulled in $14.4 million. IMAX screenings alone made up $2.5 million of that. It wasn't a record-breaking number, but for an R-rated action movie with a modest budget, it was a huge win. Critics loved it. They praised its clean action scenes, its world building, and Reeves's performance. But it wasn't just critics, audiences connected with the movie in a way no one had predicted. The underground world of assassins, with its secret rules and codes, made it feel different from anything else in theaters. Reeves brought a quiet intensity to John Wick that made the character unforgettable. The film's success gave Reeves a second life in Hollywood. But it wasn't just about the movie, it was about the work he put in behind the scenes. He trained for months before filming. He mastered martial arts, weapons handling, and stunt driving. His fight scenes looked real because he was actually performing them. By the time they started filming, he was pulling off moves that even professional stunt performers found difficult. For John Wick, Chapter 4, his training reached another level. He spent 12 weeks preparing, learning advanced gun techniques and driving maneuvers like 180 degrees spins and high-speed drifts. He performed over 90% of his own stunts across all 4 movies. His dedication became a major reason why the franchise stood out from other action films. Halle Berry, who joined the series in John Wick, Chapter 3, trained just as hard. She broke 3 ribs while preparing for her role but refused to quit. Her fight scenes became some of the most memorable in the series, proving that the actors weren't just pretending to be action stars, they were actually doing it. The first John Wick movie made $86 million worldwide on a budget of around $20 to $30 million. The sequel more than doubled that, pulling in $171 million. Then came John Wick, Chapter 3, which exploded to $326 million. But the biggest surprise came with John Wick, Chapter 4. It crossed $440 million, making it one of the highest-grossing action franchises of all time. Keanu Reeves has spent decades pushing his body to the limit. From The Matrix to John Wick, he has trained endlessly, performed his own stunts, and taken hit after hit to bring his characters to life. But now, at 60, his body is starting to push back. In a recent interview, he admitted something fans weren't expecting: his heart still wants to play John Wick, but his knees might not let him. "You can never say never," he said. "My knees right now are saying I can't do another John Wick. My heart does, but I don't know if my knees can do it." After years of intense fight scenes and brutal action sequences, even someone as dedicated as Reeves has his limits. This raises big questions about the future of John Wick 5. The franchise has redefined action movies with its stunning choreography and relentless energy. But if Reeves can't handle the same level of punishment, what happens next? Could the series slow down, or would it even make sense without him? He hasn't ruled anything out, but his hesitation is clear. Even if a 5th film remains uncertain, Reeves isn't walking away from the John Wick universe just yet. He has already filmed a cameo for Ballerina, a spin-off starring Ana de Armas. The film is set to release in 2025, keeping Reeves tied to the world he helped create. It won't be the full John Wick experience fans are used to, but it's still something. Keanu Reeves has been through more loss than most people can imagine. Behind his calm presence is a man who has faced heartbreak again and again. One of the most devastating moments of his life came in 1993 when he lost his best friend, River Phoenix, to a drug overdose. The two had grown close while filming My Own Private Idaho in 1991. That movie didn't just showcase their acting skills, it created a deep bond between them. River was only 23 when he died. That night, he was at the Viper Room, a club in West Hollywood. He was supposed to perform with the band P, which included Flea and John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It should have been a night of music and fun, but River had been on a dangerous drug binge. He had mixed heroin and cocaine and hadn't slept for days. At some point, he started feeling sick. As the night went on, things got worse. He walked outside the club and collapsed on the sidewalk. His body started convulsing. His brother Joaquin called 911, but by the time help arrived, it was too late. Paramedics rushed him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but nothing could be done. He was pronounced dead at 1:51 a.m. on October 31, 1993. Keanu was devastated. Losing River changed him forever. It wasn't just the loss of a friend, it was the loss of someone who felt like family. He rarely spoke about it, but when he did, his words carried the weight of deep sorrow. 5 years later, Keanu met Jennifer Syme. She had worked as an assistant to director David Lynch, and the two quickly fell in love. In 1999, they found out they were expecting a baby. It should have been a time of joy, but instead, it became another heartbreaking chapter in Keanu's life. Around Christmas that year, their daughter, Ava Archer Syme Reeves, was stillborn. The loss shattered them. The grief was too heavy, and their relationship began to fall apart. They eventually separated, but they never stopped caring for each other. Then tragedy struck again. On April 2, 2001, Jennifer was driving in Los Angeles when she crashed into a row of parked cars on Cahuenga Boulevard. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt. The impact threw her from the car, and she died instantly. She was only 28. That night, she had been at a party at Marilyn Manson's house. She left early in the morning but never made it home. Police later found prescription drugs in her car. The loss was unbearable. Keanu had already lost so much, and now he had to say goodbye to someone he had once dreamed of building a family with. At her funeral, he stood as a pallbearer, his face heavy with grief. Director David Lynch and musician Dave Navarro were there too, sharing in the sorrow. Lynch dedicated his film Mulholland Drive to Jennifer as a way to honor her memory. If Keanu had learned one thing from all the pain, it was to hold on to the people he loved. That became even clearer when his sister, Kim Reeves, was diagnosed with leukemia in 1991. She battled the disease for nearly a decade, and through it all, Keanu never left her side. For years, he has been running a private foundation that supports cancer research and children's hospitals. He rarely talks about it, but the reason behind it is deeply personal. His kindness isn't for attention, it's just who he is.